What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
I'm Shredlord.
And we have an album review for you. So needless to say, one of the big ones that was coming out this week, of the 16th of September, was the newest offering from Behemoth, Opvs Contra Natvram. This comes out on Nuclear Blast Records. This band formed in 1991 in Poland. This is their 12th album overall, I believe. I'm not counting any EPs or live albums. They have a lot of releases, but I think it's their 12th album. And we've been Behemoth fans for a long fucking time. And, alright, to be honest, the stuff that has been post-Satanist, which the Satanist was a fucking amazing album.
Monument album.
Yes.
But everything else that has come out after that has been not living up to expectations.
Yeah, it's been kind of meh.
We went over their last EP, A Forest, which, man, I like that Cure song. I didn't like that version, and the other tracks in it were okay, but not enough to distract from the fact.
Better off left in the forest.
Yeah, just lose it in the forest and then don't put out a search party for it.
No.
But needless to say, we wanted to go over this one because, I mean, the singles have been pretty good. The music videos have been pretty creepy. And if anything, Behemoth is always entertaining. And I would have to say, like, this feels like Behemoth getting back on track. It's, again, fast, it's evil, it's loaded with atmosphere, it's very dramatic / theatrical. It's kind of like watching The Omen, a Broadway musical, and listening to death metal at the same time, and black metal too. And, I mean, the overall effect is evil.
Yeah, I think the thing that draws me to Behemoth always was the heaviness and the evilness of it all. The first portion of this record was a little more over theatrical than I think I would have cared for. It was kind of like Rammstein meets Ghost. It wasn't bad, but when they finally took a little bit of that out and settled in, I thought it was really damn good. It reminded me of why I liked Behemoth in the first place. It had the evilness, it had the intensity, and it had the shades of black metal all over the place.
The opening track, Post God Nirvana, I mean, all right, I'm going to go ahead and say it's kind of like a long intro, but honestly, it's pretty good. It's still musical. It kind of builds up the tension with, again, like the Exorcist vibe and every like satanic movie you may have ever watched. Big like string sections in there, kind of like fluttering strings. Nurgle pretty much bellowing and yelling at his congregation.
It's an evil church sermon. Basically,
oh yeah, it definitely is. Minutes. You can almost see him in a pulpit.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
with a choir of demonic angels helping and playing the instruments in the background.
Yes. Black stuff dripping out of his mouth as he speaks.
Yes,
but why are you dripping with goo?
I drank some Satanade just before this. But after you get past that lead-in, you get into Malaria Vulgata, which is fast, aggressive, very blackened. Kind of reminded me a bit of like Watain, especially like their last album. Just out front, blast beats, very cold, sinister riffs, and Nurgle's token raspy, just disturbing voice. And you get a real good sense of like the production on here, which the production is fucking huge.
Yes.
I mean, kind of to be expected, but it can be a bit much at sometimes because there are so many elements coming in. Like you have string sections, synths, multiple vocal takes. I believe the overall mix was done by Joe Barassi, who's known for his work with a fucking ton of bands. He has a very impressive resume. They also had Daniel Bergstrand do the production on, I believe, just the drums, which the drums sound very crisp, maybe a little loud when they get into the turnovers.
And by a little loud, yes, loud.
It adds to the intensity, though.
It does.
It does, but the volume is noticeably different. Like the drums are at a great volume, but when he gets into those big nasty turnovers, dude, the volume just goes.
The thing that made it seem a little squished at times also was the excessive use of reverb on a lot of things. Obviously, it gives it that big, evil cave sound, but when you have a lot going on, it's a hard wire to navigate, You're kind of walking on the razor's edge. And they did a fairly good job, but there were parts where I felt like the reverb could have come down to help let the guitars breathe a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. The guitars feel kind of smushed, and, I would even say, like, this goes beyond, like, the evil cave sound. Like, this is an evil fucking giant auditorium. It's a haunted, opera house. But unfortunately, like, when you try to mix around stuff so everything shines, you end up sacrificing some levels, and I think where they cut them the most was the guitars.
The rhythm guitars, mostly. The leads were, in my opinion, pretty top-notch for this band, but the rhythm guitars get lost really easily, either be it the synths or the bass or even the drums. Like, the riff kind of dies a little bit.
Even the vocals, too. The vocals can kind of come at you at odd levels. Like, in 1 second, Nurgle's kind of in the background, kind of growling his guts out about how much he loves Jesus. I'm pretty sure that's the theme on this album.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he said that.
His love of Christianity.
Oh, it's the cover.
Yes.
The cover really tells you that.
Yes, I felt very close to Jesus during this whole album.
But sometimes you'll get like a bellow and a roar that is also layered, because again, this is very, big in terms of production, like right out in front, like where it kind of drowns out everything except for those drums when it comes down to the turnovers.
Where the album really started to take a turn upward for me was the song Neo Spartacus. It kind of presented an energy and almost a groove that hadn't been introduced on the album. The middle of this album is very strong for me. Neo Spartacus, Disinheritance, and Off to War. Those three in particular, and they're kind of right after each other, are, in my opinion, the strongest part of this album. And it, once again, these songs specifically reminded me of why I liked Behemoth. It had the intensity, had a little bit of a groove to it, you could shake your satanic ass a little bit. But the epicness, the evilness, it was all there in a good mix, especially during that middle.
Neo Spartacus I like because it kind of laid off the double bass for a little while, and I think the guitars were able to breathe a little bit more there, and it kind of has this blackened goth rock feel. Like there's parts in it, especially when it comes down to the verses, that remind me a lot of Tribulation, which I'm a huge fan of that band. And when it comes down to like some of the more atmospheric leads and melodies on here, there's a lot of stuff that kind of sounds like early Mastodon, albeit blackened. So like stuff that's very similar to like Leviathan, I would say.
Oh yeah, Leviathan and maybe a little bit of like Blood Mountain.
Yeah.
But somewhere in there, the vein of those like guitar solos that they did, this just has a lot of that kind of vibe, just obviously more evil.
Yeah, a lot of dissonance, but a lot of good melody and a lot of good musicianship on the execution as well.
And the songs are very technical for the most part. Like this isn't like very straightforward. They have more straightforward songs on here, like Off to War is kind of pretty much just all pummeling, just kind of driving in on a fucking D beat and just all the satanic fucking army just barreling down the mountain. It's like a Mordor fucking party song.
I really like the song Once Upon a Pale Horse. That to me was one of my personal favorites. Just a very kind of like bouncy groove. Just like bouncy rock and groove, and then Morbid Angel.
That little flip there I thought was really cool. Like it's this kind of strummy, simple kind of riff, like straightforward groove, and then gets in that double time Morbid Angel tremolo. Is like, all right, this is kind of cool. It's like a rocker, but it's also still got some really good brutal sections to it. And I thought it was kind of interesting that there is maybe like some Greek themes on here, because back to back, you have Neo Spartacus, which we brought up, but the track before it, Of My Herculean Exile. I don't know, like there's just like some themes in there. There's even some musical notes that kind of sound like Greek folk music kind of blended in there too. It's very interesting because it made me think of bands like Septic Flesh and Rotting Christ, which these bands kind of do a similar style to Behemoth in a way, albeit I think maybe a little bit more death metal focused. This is definitely more, I don't know, like I would say this is more black metal than it is death metal, and that's kind of been the transition since the Satanist.
And then the last track, Versus Christus, right?
Versus Christus.
Versus Christus.
With V's.
With V's.
In place of U's.
Yep. I didn't leave myself a whole lot of room for notes, and I'm kind of pissed because it ended up being a really cool song. The beginning of it starts with Nurgle, again, chanting and kind of addressing a congregation.
Evil Roger Waters.
Yeah, there's a piano.
But he's also like reading Goosebumps and R.L. Stein novels.
I'm waiting for the fucking duet with Tom Waits. I think it's going to be beautiful.
It took a minute to actually get to the song, but once it gets to it, it's like a cross between Faith No More and Decapitated.
Honestly, yes.
Which is really strange to mention for this band, but that's what it is.
And it sounded good.
And it did. When it gets down to the pummeling, like tom hits to the snares, like it sounds like We Care a Lot, except it's Behemoth. We know they don't.
Yep.
I thought this was like a good example of where like theatrical elements and the death metal elements, like when they're separate, you can hear them more distinctly because the whole lead-in is very dramatic. Like very lush sounding with the piano and, Nurgle's bellowing grumbles and shit. But how it leads in and gets really big and epic, I don't know, like the more like metal side of it kind of shines a little bit. And that's kind of an issue on this album is, again, the theatrics. Like, there are a lot of them. And when you get like some really wild transitions with like strings and synths on top of it and Nurgle bellowing what the fuck ever, it can get a little messy sometimes. Like, it just gets to be too much. Like there's a point I wanted him to turn it down.
Yeah, like, I mean, I get it. I think it's going to translate really well live. Like, I can just tell that this is going to be another, epic theatrical performance. But for the sake of the album, it's kind of like disjointed and a little jumbled at times when I don't think it needs to be. I think it kind of, the theatrics kind of overpower the music at points, and you're like, all right, cool, but eh.
I think Nurgle's been kind of like chasing the success that was the Satanist. Like, that kind of got on a lot of lists. Like, that one kind of like, kind of broke outside of just the metalheads talking about it. And he definitely missed on I Loved You at Your Darkest. Like, that one just felt like Diet Behemoth, and it just did not fucking resonate with me. This one feels more metal again, like more intense overall. And it feels at least less aimless than I Loved You at Your Darkness. Like, there's definitely kind of spots where it kind of wanders. Like, not all the transitions are super smooth, and again, with the overproduction, it can kind of get kind of hard to follow sometimes. But overall, I think this is really good. Like, they got the epic catchiness back. It sounds evil and sinister. I think the songwriting is pretty damn good on here. Just mostly issues with production and then kind of like overdoing the themes. Even to the point where I would say their new armor is something else. It looks like DLC stuff for like a fucking video game like Dark Souls or something like that. And one other issue, and it's kind of a minor one, but I don't know, it's something I picked up on, is they're great at building tension. Like, you can kind of feel all the evil and everything sort of well up. When it comes down to releasing it, it's kind of, just good. Like, sometimes the payoff isn't as good as the build up to it. But overall, I dug this. I thought this was a much more focused album than the last one, and certainly better than anything on that EP. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. This was a pretty solid album. Just maybe like a little bit less is more philosophy on the next one. I don't think they're going to take that one to heart. But this is Behemoth. It's supposed to be grand. It's a giant fucking evil spectacle. They executed on bringing back some more intense, biting songs. And, I mean, I would say, this is the direction they need to be in. Like, just kind of get focused on being evil and brooding and just stop chasing the Satanists. Let that be a standalone album and just keep forging ahead. This is a good one. If you're a longtime Behemoth fan, I definitely recommend checking this one out. And if you're new to them, I don't know if this is the place to start. I would definitely recommend, like, some other favorite albums.
The Apostasy.
The Apostasy is amazing. Demigod, Evangelion, I think is incredible. The Satanist would definitely set you up for this. But yeah, just go get you some fucking Behemoth. It's good shit.
I'm going to give it a 3. Welcome back, Behemoth. It was a pretty cool listen. I've never been a big fan of symphonics and theatrics in metal, albeit this is Behemoth, and I get it. I've seen Behemoth live twice. I get it. They're definitely, like Nick said, moving in the right direction. I think they dug a little deep at times to try and make these songs bigger than what they were, but it was a good try. I gotta mention the lead work, because we didn't really talk about the lead work, which is nuts, dude. The lead work is fucking nasty.
Yeah.
Good for them. The drums are just like they normally are. Dude.
Yeah,
just big old massive nasty turnovers. I mean, but overall, like, it was decent. It was better than what they've done in the past. It's definitely not my favorite, but it's a good listen.
I'm going to go ahead and give this a 3.5. I think this is absolutely trending in the right direction. The proper mix of elements are back in the music. Some things they could have done for me personally is maybe add a little bit more variety when it comes to some of the songwriting. Some of the songs could be interchangeable at times. And the other thing is, like Nick touched on before, perhaps when it comes time to release all that tension in some of the choruses or some of the changes in the song, whatever you want to call them, perhaps they could be a little bit more creative when it comes to that, to deliver a little bit more of, dare I say, a hook. It's okay to have a hook. Behemoth has done it time and time again. on older albums, so they can do it. Those two small gripes aside, I absolutely think that they are trending in the right direction, and this was an enjoyable listen, so 3.5. So, if you like this review, please check out all of the other reviews and all sorts of crazy shit that we put up all the time. Hit the like and subscribe button if you are not a member of the community. We would love to welcome you. Also, the likes obviously help out the algorithms, which we appreciate as well.
Big old thumbs up.
If you want to get yourself some Thralls of Metal merch, you can go to thrallsofmetal.com and find your way through our merch store, which we will be adding more to very soon. If you would like to support us, we also have a link down below for our Patreon. We greatly appreciate it, and we try to do as much as we can for those who support us. And finally, last but not least, thank each and every one of you that took the time out of your day to watch our videos. Without you, we are nothing. We are Navalent. So we appreciate all the time out of your day spending with us doing what we do. So, on behalf of my metal cohort tonight, I'm Shredlord. We are signing off. Have a good day.